The Mini Cooper S uses a different type of power steering setup than most cars. Rather than having a power steering pump driven by the engine belts, the pump is driven by an electric motor. It is also located directly below the exhaust manifold, which adds to heat issues. Over time, the pumps can seize up and require replacement. The first step is to disconnect the battery. We're going to be working close to the starter motor. The next step is to remove as much power steering fluid as you can from the reservoir. Remove the nut securing the clamp around the reservoir, yellow arrow, and the two nuts and rubber grommet holding the bracket to the rear firewall, green arrows. Slide underneath the car and remove the two nuts holding the power steering fan in place, green arrows. Lower the fan, disconnect the wiring harness, and set it aside. With the fan removed, you have access to remove the two electrical connectors that plug into the power steering pump. Clearance is a bit tight and it's a bit hard to see what you're doing. Remove the smaller harness plug, green arrow, from the connector on the pump, yellow arrow. Now remove the larger electrical connector towards the back of the pump by prying it out to the left. This is the main power feed to the power steering pump. Shown here are the connections for the fluid hoses going to the pump. The green arrow shows the 13mm bolt that holds the high pressure line to the pump. Remove the bolt. The purple arrow showing the crimped on hose clamp holding the low pressure or return line that carries fluid back to the reservoir. Use a long flathead screwdriver to pry the hose clamp open, but don't try to take the line off yet. Now pry the mounting plate for the high pressure line off the top of the pump as shown here. Be aware that you will get a lot of fluid flowing out of the lines and the pump, so it helps to have a drain pan underneath. Remove the 13mm nut on the underside of the front subframe. This is the forward mounting point for the bracket that holds the pump in place. It's hard to see them, but there are two 13mm bolts that hold the power steering pump bracket to the subframe. These are accessed from behind the steering rack. The green arrow here shows the approximate position of the two bolts. A 13mm socket with an extension really helps to remove these bolts. Now remove the pump from the subframe. This will take a little time as it's a very tight fit, but once you start moving the pump around, you'll find the best way to get it out. Once the pump has been lowered enough to reach, remove the return line from the top of the pump. With the pump removed from the car, you will need to remove the mounting frame. Remove the four 10mm nuts holding the pump to the frame, green arrows. Next, remove the torque bolts securing the brackets to the pump, green arrows. Now transfer the bracket to the new pump. Once in place, bolt the mounting frame onto the bracket. Now place the new pump back into the subframe. With the new pump installed, open the fluid reservoir and fill it up with CHF 11S power steering fluid only. This fluid is available from Pelican. Once you have filled up the reservoir, start the engine and turn the steering wheel full lock to the right and to the left 10 times. This will bleed all the air out of the system, and remember to check the level when you're done. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another video in this series.